last week here in Thailand, there was a devastating event that happened in the northern parts of Thailand, where there was a very, very sad story of a school, I guess the word is massacre, where I'm not really going to go into too much details because it's really, really sad. But I do just want to say, like, condolences, to all those, and, whatever you believe in, I send my thoughts, prayers, love, spirituality, all those things towards all those families. And, I just kind of wanted to give the space to just say something, towards that. It's a sad thing. We don't always want to talk about sad things, but it's also a real thing, so I just wanted to take the time to say that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Hello. Welcome back to episode 6 of The Big Vibe. Of course. Just so you know, when you see us dancing in the beginning, we don't have any music. We're just kind of anticipating.
It's
we
a
just
feeling,
kind of
guys.
anticipate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, man.
If you know, you know.
Integrated with the big vibe. The vibe is within us. We are the vibe.
We are the vibe, 100%. If you're watching, you'll notice that it is just the two of us again today. Big shout out to our wives that joined us for the previous episode. It was a lot of fun. I think they enjoyed it. We enjoyed it. Hopefully you enjoyed it.
Yes.
So, yeah, that was a great episode. So you can expect more guests coming up in the future. I think we've got a few lined up already based on current events and things that are happening, just to have those kinds of conversations with people as we go along. But hopefully Tev and I are good enough for you. I would think so, because
I think so.
prior to last week, you didn't even know that there were other people coming, kind of. So we're good enough for you. So welcome back. Good to see you.
Yes.
Nice to have everyone here.
Exactly.
Just so you know, everybody. Sorry, Tev. Yeah.
No, just to say thanks again, everyone that has listened in previous episodes. Shout out to the parents. I got some feedback from our parents, and they're loving the show. They found it very interesting. And
do they have to?
Actually, they are. Biases can be a wonderful thing, man. And a shout out to you specifically from my father-in-law. He says he is extremely happy at what we're doing, and extra bonus points to you because you're a gunner and sitting pretty top of the league. He can't be happier. So
lovely. Appreciate that one. That was unplanned, just so you know. I didn't know I was going to get some flowers, so thank you for that one.
You see?
Yep, that was a good one.
It's a movement.
Yeah. So just before we kick off with the show, I'd just like to explain that we are starting a new sort of format from this week onwards. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be releasing the episode in kind of four sections. The first one will be the full main episode. So if you have we're aiming 45 minutes to an hour. If you have that kind of time and you feel like listening to us for that duration, then cool, you listen to the full episode. Other than that, we're going to be dividing it into the sections around the world, getting athletic, and more often than not, matters of the heart and what's good in your hood normally become kind of one. So we're going to try and do it like that. So feel free to, listen to what you want to listen to. Instead of trying to, I know some people, it feels like an hour. I love an hour. That works for me as a podcast listener, but not everybody wants that. Not everybody wants to listen to us for a full ongoing hour, especially because, they feel like they want to join in the conversation, but it's awkward, and now they're just listening and they don't even have time to digest what we're saying. So listen to it as you feel. That will be the new format from this week.
I think that's a good takeaway from it. You guys spoke, we've listened. We've had a lot of you saying, I wish it was a bit shorter, or could I get a bit more on this section? I really loved hearing news around the world, or the focus on sports. So
yeah, or this section is maybe not my vibe so much. Yeah, that's chilled. It is also, we like to listen to what people have to say, but at the same time, it is also our show. So we are also going to talk about what we want to talk about. Sorry if that came across a little bit harsh, but I just needed to say it.
Oh man, yeah, like you say, I mean, it is our show, and you guys are these. You guys are Brasa. You guys are friends. Friends, for those of you that don't know, back in South Africa, Brasa, our Mensa, our people, we friends.
Yeah.
You're on episode 6 now. As we've come to know, you guys are friends. You're part of our community.
Yep.
And we love engaging with you. And as Tyler said, we've broken it up into easy bite-sized portions for you guys to enjoy. And as such, we will jump into the very first one that we call Around the World. Around the world, news from around the world. I think we've seen this as an ongoing, I don't want to call it a trend, but we've seen it happen numerous times for years now. And it's a sad reality that we see now, which is the presence of the online keyboard racist warriors, the anti-Semitic...
anti-Semites, anti-Semitic people, and
all around
bigotry, that kind of
that we're seeing online, and it's really sad to see. We've noted the backlash that the Brentford striker Ivan Toney received this last week after their triumph in the Premier League. And as a bold move, I do credit Ivan Toney for calling out these trolls. What he has done, we've seen on social media, is that he's actually highlighted these people's names, their profiles. He's published that on his page, named and shamed, and it's one step in the right direction. But I think that, all the responsibility shouldn't have to sit with the victim. We need a lot more interaction. We need a lot more help and action from these companies. We need social media outlets to come to the party. I mean, it's so crazy to think that racist, discriminatory comments are allowed and seem to pass through these so-called filters that these social media platforms have up. And yet, I'll take YouTube as an example, where any kind of copyright infringement that appears is taken down swiftly.
Quick, fast.
I mean, like
so
snap
fast,
of a finger, and it's done. Your videos no longer available. You can't
no negotiations. That's it.
Exactly. It's almost an act now, ask questions later. So why is it that we can't have that same approach to discrimination and essentially online bullying that we see so much of
on all these different scales?
Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Where are the leaders? Where are the personnel that are here to act? I think that's something that I'd like to see a lot more of. And then I think the next question would be, once we've identified these perpetrators, what is the right course of action to take? How can we successfully punish and, to an extent, educate people? I think there may be an element of ignorance to it.
I was going to say,
but that can only be stretched so far. So what are the measures that you think we should put in play in order to combat a situation like this? That's my first question for you.
So I actually didn't think about the copyright thing as you mentioned it now. That's a really, really valid point. It's crazy, man, like how quickly, I mean, we haven't been copyrighted for anything as yet because we OG like that. But I've seen it's quick, fast, man. And it's crazy how when it comes to money or capitalism, how, how quickly that can be protected, how quickly something can be done. And with technology at the point that it's at, I find it difficult to believe that there's no filter kind of, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, system that's in place. I mean, I guess the one thing that one needs to bear in mind is like, it's a little bit more, copyright is a little bit more straightforward in that if I use something that doesn't belong to me, it's pretty obvious, right? It's pretty easy to, how would you say, like filter or to determine whether something is copyrighted or not. True. On the other hand, sometimes, and this might sound like a soft excuse, but I think perception comes into play as well. Because I know you obviously have reporting buttons and etc. where you can report specific tweets, posts on all these platforms, and then it says we will take this under consideration, or this will be reviewed, right?
Yes.
Sometimes it's extremely blatant that it's bigotry, racism, sexism, whatever you want to call it. Sometimes it's subtle. So I guess the one argument would be like, okay, but how do you navigate? Like, at what point, where do you draw the line, right? And this also brings into play the age-old argument is free speech, right? So how limited can this be, or how limited should it be, right? And so I think that's the kind of tricky semantic part. But I refuse to believe that there's nothing that we can come up with the stuff that we come up with in terms of monetizing things. I refuse to believe that there is nothing that can be done, right? I firmly refuse to believe that.
100%. And in the world of AI, when you're having technology that's able to, wow, I can write a full-on copy by giving it one word, and from that one word, it's able to research in itself, like
create art. There's that AI making
search,
art,
platform, and give me results from that.
Yes,
it's able to have technology act in that fashion. How is that we can't use even elements of that into cracking
and I'm
down
also
on things
finding that these big companies are not really answering the questions like that you and I are asking right now, right? So Mr. Mark, I know you're listening right now, so answer our questions, fam. We'll put an Instagram question for you in specific. No, I'm just joking. But honestly, I'm finding that there's a lack of answers. So even in the Ivan Toney case, Meta has said that they are unable to do anything more than block this person's account because of some semantic along the lines of they can't take action because, if I'm not mistaken, the correct channels of reporting were not followed. Or something like that. So it's kind of like, but it just seems so weak. Like that just, I don't know. But then also, like, what do you do, right? So you ask, like, about punishment. Like, I agree, ignorance, especially, it's definitely present. But then what do? You send someone on, like, this is racist course, you know? Like, how do you kind of, like, what is the solution? It's tricky in that sense.
There needs to be, maybe people don't see the end product or the consequences of action and words. So maybe by tweeting these racist tweets, thoughts, whatever it is, online, I, as the perpetrator, I'm now in the shoes or in the fingers of a perpetrator, would think, cool, that's it. I've put it out in the world. Banter, cool. I could get a few likes on this. End of story. And they don't see the impact that this might have. I think maybe introducing some case studies, having accounts of victims that explain kind of the plight that they're in and the emotional headspace that they are currently in as a result of comments like this. And
sorry, what about something like, you know, like how now you have to register, like in South Africa you had to RICA, remember you had to register. I know with online betting sites you also have to give some form of identification in order to draw your finances or something like that. How would you feel if you made a Twitter account that you would have to attach it? Okay, but now this also brings the Popeye Act into it, and also then it's also data protection. So I guess it gets tricky. But what about something like that? Like more accountability. You can't just go make a ghost email account and just what about something like that? Or is that too drastic?
Yeah, no, I'd definitely say that's a brilliant idea to attach a physical person to an online persona,
so they can answer.
Whatever you want to call
it's quite easy to have to
some
answer.
level of accountability there. So if I know that Tyler 4567889 at whatever is responsible for Tyler, I know point of call. Cool. Once I've undergone this review stage, so once I've reported you, the authorities from the various social platforms then match that to your personal account. And, action is taken from there. I think once you remove the facelessness of an online alias or profile, that's when there's
When
a
you,
lot more accountability to people's actions. And when you're faced with this person. So if I'd imagine like it might sound silly as an idea, but you know, you have AA. You have a group, you go into a meeting, you're sitting with people who are facing a struggle. So for the people that literally cannot comprehend their actions, you have almost like a community service type program where you're sitting with fellow online perpetrators, racists, bigots, whoever it may be, in a room or on an online meeting, whatever it is, and you listen to accounts of action, consequence. I put both on the table. It's no longer just, cool, I sent out a tweet, I wanted to be funny, and that's the end of the story. I now understand how far on my actions kind of the ripple effect of my actions. So I see, okay, once I had called Ivan Toney X,
the things that I did, whatever,
I know what that meant for him, what that drove him to the kind of headspace he's in, and I need to take accountability for my actions. And you have to do X amount of time, say you have to do 3 months worth of this course in order to understand. And then at the end of this course, you need to present a case as to how you've learned from this experience, what you've learned, how you're going to implement it, and what your takeaways, and almost have almost a buddy system. So you then become the next sponsor for someone else that's been convicted or prosecuted for a similar crime.
Look, I mean, everything we're kind of talking about almost sounds quite idealistic in a sense, because it actually, I mean, I guess that's why we're talking about it, right? It's quite complicated. We wish it didn't exist, but it does. It's quite complicated to try and come up with a solution, and we're certainly not going to do it in 20 minutes of episode 6 of The Big Vibe. But I think, you know, like, the important thing is, like, it's obviously causing a lot of problems, and I'd say one of them even, like, so Ivan Toney posted a screenshot of these direct messages from this person. He posted it on Twitter, and as a result, a lot of people then jumped up, firstly in support, like, oh, well, up to you, Ivan, etc., etc. Then a lot of people also obviously hopped into that guy's DMs and then started in, you know, like, also then returning abuse one way or another. And it kind of, the danger of it is that you're starting to lead towards like this kind of mob justice kind of thing. But let's be honest, mob justice wouldn't exist if there was the proper channels of
policing of.
Yes, mob justice only exists because people feel underrepresented or unable, or they're feeling unanswered. You know, so again, it's a very, very tricky conversation. How do you toe the line between, you know, then protecting your data? Because I don't know if I necessarily want to be giving my ID, especially after you watch things on Netflix like The Great Hack, where you see how our data has been exploited. Yes, I've read all the terms and conditions, which no one really actually reads, but we know our data is being, you know, exploited. There's the Great Hack, and then the other one is the social dilemma. You actually really see what's happening with our data. So, you know, that's the counter argument to having to RICA, FICA, whatever you call it, or having to register, attach yourself to a profile. So, you know, it is a difficult thing to manage, but I think, and I often say this, I think the fact that these conversations exist on platforms like this, to however many people listen to us, whether it's 100, 1,000, not yet, maybe one day, but, you know, the more people that are having these conversations, the more we bring this to the forefront, and the more change can happen.
That's what we ultimately want, man. And it starts, but be the change you want to see in the world. As a small act that can make a world of difference. Because we know, I think everybody would be, if they could be honest with themselves, they'd know a few people in their circle that have some questionable remarks about things, questionable opinions, and it's their responsibility to toe the line there. Call them to call him out on it. So, Tyler, I don't like.
I don't know about that one. Yeah,
it's. I think because we can put all the responsibility in the hands of authorities, but I think we also have to look at ourselves as individuals, as communities, as social groups, and we have to start somewhere. So that small act or the small idea, I think, could go a long way in kind of trying to
remedy the situation, at least assist, change, whatever you want to say.
Just implement some kind of change.
But no, for sure.
Let's keep an eye out on this, see what is done, and how much is done. Because there needs to be some indication of change. There needs to be
taking the knee at the beginning of a football match is no longer cutting it. It's just a bit of a
what more?
A bit of a gimmick almost. It turned into no room for racism on the armbands. Like, all that stuff is cute, and it was a cool initiative, but actually we need to see tangible. We need tangible action,
that's
for sure.
Essentially what we're hoping for. But I think that's a great point to put a pin in it. Let us know on the various channels what you guys think. How can we try and combat this? Is it our responsibility? Should all the responsibility be in the hands of the platform owners? Punishment. What do you think is fair punishment for online abuse?
And if you're going to be hopping out now at the end of this section, please remember, do all the things, like it, comment, share, subscribe. But really, we are interested to hear what people think. Like Tev said, what do you think about punishments? What do you think? Whose responsibility is it? These are the questions. These are the conversations. That's why we're having them.
Exactly.
So I think that's a good place to now wrap up and move into section 2, which we will be calling Getting Athletic. So, as you can see, if you are watching on the platform behind me over there, NBA starting this week. We got Jokic, Davies, and Giannis. Those are the only 3 I decided to put up today. But NBA starting this week. Now, I know Tev and I are generally football-centric people. We're trying to diversify ourselves. We're trying to make sure that we stay relevant, stay woke. I can't believe I just used that phrase. Anyway, so maybe we can edit that out. Anyway, so we wanted to talk a little bit just about the NBA. Obviously, for returning listeners, you know that we generally go a little bit deeper than just a recap of what's happening, which we will be doing. But first and foremost, I just wanted to say that the tournament the NBA league is due to start on the 19th of October. There's some really, really exciting matches in the first week that will have been played by the time we release this episode. So the first one being the Celtics and the 76ers. 76ers have a new looking outfit. Obviously, we know Joel Embiid. He's been something. He's really been pretty good. The Celtics, they were runner up last year. They've got quite a young, exciting roster going into this season. So that's a good one. And then on the West Coast, we've got the Lakers playing the Warriors. Which for me is that's a highlight game for me because I don't really know if I have a team. Maybe I'll start by asking you, Tev, do you support anyone specific in the NBA?
Oh, I need to become a lot more invested in the NBA. I've kind of followed players more so than I have teams. Obviously, everyone would notable teams would be the Chicago Bulls from the MJ days. Everyone knows that. The LA Lakers from Kobe's time, and obviously now LeBron, part of that roster. It's almost like the star-studded team. So I think I would gravitate towards
as a City fan.
Oh, there you go. Where's the money? I would have even given a go with the Nets. They've also had star-studded teams, but there's so much movement in the NBA as well. So for the purposes of this conversation, let's say I am backing King LeBron, so I'll be a Lakers fan.
A Lakers
today.
fan. Okay.
There we go.
Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. I think the challenges with NBA is, firstly, if you don't live in America, the time difference works well for me in Thailand. I can actually watch the games in the morning. It works out quite well. Like Saturday morning, you wake up, what you doing, fam? Nothing, just watching some NBA. That's quite nice. But so the timing is one thing. And then the second thing is, you touched on it, there's this movement with players, makes it quite difficult to gain loyalty as someone who doesn't live in America. So more often than not, people will either support the team that they went to. Let's say they went to college in that state, they'll support that team. Or if they grew up there, they will support that team. Or if let's say even their parents come from, let's say Sacramento, but then they move to Boston, but the dad or the mom is a big fan of the Sacramento Kings, and then that gets passed on to the kids, so you get that, the tribalism in terms of location, I find when I speak to Americans, and it's difficult to associate to that as a non-American. Obviously, we don't have association towards states. Like I kind of like the Lakers as well. I like LeBron. I spent a little bit of time in LA. I went to Staples Center. I didn't watch a game, but I went there, so I kind of have that association to it. But I have zero loyalty. Okay, I buy these. My loyalty lies with Arsenal, but when it comes to NBA, I just buy sick-looking jerseys that have players that I like. So
and a rundown of those players.
Well, you can see the three behind me. Davis a bit injury-prone. Giannis, oh my goodness, the Greek freak. He's awesome to watch. Antetokounmpo, I think he's my favorite player to watch. Jokic, beautiful to watch. Ja Morant. Luka Doncic, it's kind of like the normal household names, like a few silent players. I have a friend, a close friend who's a supporter of the Celtics, and he's very knowledgeable about basketball. So when I talk to him, obviously his biases rub off on me. So I like the Celtics a lot. Tatum, Brown, that whole team. Robert Williams, not everybody knows him, but he's one of their centers. He's really cool to watch. So I think for me, that's where I land on the NBA. But I thought what could be nice for us to chat a little bit about is Draymond Green. Not sure if you saw the video or just a little bit about what happened there. But basically, Draymond Green is what we consider a veteran or an older player. Jordan Poole being one of the younger kind of up and coming players, not new, but maybe fourth season in the NBA. So still a bit of a youngster. And there's no audio in the video I saw, or if there is audio, it's a bit unclear. And it looks like Jordan Poole says something to Draymond Green, and then he goes and he punches him and then follows up. I think he actually kind of UFC style wants to like climb over him and like really get into it, and people had to like kind of pull him apart. And it was kind of controversial in the sense of some people thought he was going to be kicked off the Warriors roster. Yeah, some people were saying, LeBron's going to bring him to Lakers, because actually LeBron builds his own rosters, they say. But a lot of people thought he was going to be going to the Lakers. Okay. So, that was quite something. And there's speculation that Draymond Green's contract situation is running out and that he's jealous of Jordan Poole, but I think that's just sensationalism. But this kind of leads into, I wanted to talk to you like a little bit about, we've spoken about this in the past, the kind of role of these like the sportsmen, etc. And what I wanted to ask you is, they would start the season off with a ring ceremony, obviously, right? Like, because they won last year. Yeah. Now, obviously, this is going to be kind of at the center of it. Everyone's kind of going to be talking about it. So in a case like this, how do you think it should be handled? Like, if you were the general manager, let's put you in a position of power. Oof. How do you handle something? I mean, I know we don't have a context of the whole thing of like what happened in what led to this, but how do you deal with this? Ted? I
think the generally, and I think I've seen it a few times in football as an example, where if there's some controversy surrounding a player, so be it that they were keen for a move out, it was the end of the transfer window, we thought it was almost a done deal, and it never happened. Yeah. You think that has it plays on the mind of the player, and moving into the first game of the season, which is very important, you want to start off on the best possible foot. ideal measure, I think, is people to put that player aside in a way. So either bench them or you leave them out just for that specific game there. So the players that were in contention with this matter, so being Jordan Poole and Draymond Green in this instance, have them just be taken out of the media limelight. Although, to an extent,
the ring ceremony.
Not the ring ceremony. So just
the game. Just
the actual game. So have them be a part of the team dynamic when it comes to the ring ceremony. I mean, they earn their places for that.
Yeah.
So props should be given to them. They should be a part of that. In terms of the game, when I'm taking into consideration the team dynamic, because teams, how well the team is gelling.
Yeah.
I need to take that into consideration for the actual game. So I'd probably rest both Poole and Draymond Green.
Okay.
Unless these are my key players for my strategy to win the game. So I, as the coach, would rest both players, at least bench them for the game.
I think what did end up happening is he was fined, which I don't know how much. It was an undisclosed amount. Jordan Poole came out and obviously Draymond Green came out and publicly apologized. What was interesting about his apology was that it was at Jordan Poole, but he also gave a bit of an apology to the family. He was like, like how this moment is taking away from the ring ceremony, which I thought, you showing your maturity here. If only you had shown it instead of punching the guy. And he was super angry about the video getting leaked. And I was like, mate, if you didn't punch him, there would be nothing to leak.
There would be anything to report on.
That kind of attitude always annoys me. Like, oh man, like I can't believe like this video got leaked. It's like, but don't give them videos to leak. Like, why are you doing this to yourself? You're making excuses here. But Jordan Poole did also come out and he didn't say much about the event. What he did say is that we are champions, we know how to be champions, and we will do what we have to be to stay champions. So we will play together, no problem. And he didn't actually talk about any personal issues. So I guess we'll see. I plan on watching the game, so I'll hear what they say about it. And actually, funny enough, now we've spoken about the Warriors, I think maybe we can spend 2 or 3 minutes talking about this. On the Lakers side, LeBron James,
James.
A household name. Yes, sir. So just an interesting for our kind of neutral, just sports listeners that don't really follow. LeBron James, everybody knows who he is, but I don't know if everybody knows that his intention is to play with his oldest son, who is Bronny. Now, if he does manage to, I think Bronny is due to start in 2 years. If he does manage to play with him, he will be the first person ever to be on the same roster, father and son. Being on the same roster. Yes. Yeah, so that would be quite cool. He's super athletic. Last season, he had a very good, albeit the Lakers didn't have a strong season, he was still showing at 36 years old that he can climb and that he's strong and etc. And I look forward to watching him this season. He really is some other animal watching him play, man. It's so cool. Different gravy, let's say. But I wanted to ask you, so there's a lot of people that talk about Bronny as an athlete who is talented, but some say not quite a first pick kind of player. But now a lot of these teams understand that if you draft Bronny, you get LeBron as a package deal. He'll go wherever he needs to go. And arguably, as soon as you sign LeBron, you sell probably enough jerseys to make a lot of money. You start selling stadium. How many people are going to be going to these games to watch Bronny and LeBron play together? You make that money back. So it's not really going to cost the team much, right?
Yeah.
My question to you is, I guess this is nepotism in sport to an extent. How do you think it feels for Bronny? Do you think this is something he should use to drive himself, or how do you think? Because this is his situation, right? How do you think it feels for him if you were to try and put yourself in his shoes?
Taking what he tweeted and said to reporters, I found that interesting, and I do give him a lot of credit for that. He came out saying, "Look, I'm not fazed about being the first pick. I just want to play basketball," and that's a really good headspace to be in. Actually unbelievable to think that he's just okay, and that the family's okay with him just playing basketball, given the legacy that LeBron has built, given all this weight that we put on his shoulders for him to live up to the expectation of the James name. It's a lot to carry. I would wonder if, number one, he dreamt of basketball being his career as opposed to just being his passion and his hobby. So that's kind of what I would first ask. But for him, I think it's great. You already put in a very privileged position that you have all of these people looking to scout you, looking to get you on their respective rosters. So you're 50 meters into a 100-meter race already, just from the get-go. So now, if you're performing, it's highlighting you even more, and you can kind of start to produce your own legacy. So that's obviously first option. Secondly,
difficult one to overcome, but
try and live up to. But if that doesn't go well, hey man, you're still LeBron James's kid. You're playing basketball. It's something that both you and your family love. It's the joy of basketball, which I think is really cool. So just to see them, even if LeBron and Bronny don't have a great season together, but they get the opportunity to play together, that will just make, I think, every sports person's dream come true.
And I think, like the nice thing about this is, look, you could be cynical and say, like, it's easy to turn around and say, oh, I don't care about when I get drafted. It's like saying, like, oh, I don't really care about what food I eat when you have a full fridge, right? It's easy to, you know what I'm saying? But that's a cynical approach, and I'm not going to take that. But what I will say is this: I think it's commendable of him to have that attitude. I've watched a few clips. I mean, not much, but I've seen something. He looks like he can ball, at least like he did. Apparently, the youngest son, Bryce, apparently he's a baller. They say that kid balls. Like they say, Bronny's good, but they say Bryce is a baller.
He's made for the big time, essentially.
Yeah, that's what they're saying. So what I will say, what's quite cool about this is, like, as a general sports fan, we look at like these events that happen, or Usain Bolt wouldn't have run as fast as he had run if somebody didn't run as fast as they did beforehand, right?
True.
That as humans, we push each other to the next level, to the next extent. And I think this is a great example. Athletes like LeBron James, Cristiano Ronaldo, Zlatan would like to be mentioned in this conversation, but I don't think he's at the same kind of level. But athletes like that are really showing like what you can do and like the limits you can push yourself to. And I think, if anything, that's a really cool thing to look at. Like, to look at like he's working so hard for this thing, pushing his body to the limits. And I think that's really, really awesome. And he actually said that he believes he could play with Bryce as well. He believes his body can carry him.
Actually insane. Like,
can you imagine Bryce, Bronny, LeBron? Like that's a record that I don't think will ever be broken. Like a father and two 100%. Sons on the same roster.
And it's going to be curious to see how well he plays. I think the kind of mental beast he is, he'd want to try and keep up with this level, just under this level of performance, even when they eventually come into the NBA, which will be good to see. Like you'd think that a person like LeBron wouldn't just come on for a quick 2 minutes, have a free throw, go and sit back down.
Doesn't.
No, not that kind of. And it's actually very interesting to see. I think he's coming up on the all-time points record of the NBA.
And I think assists as well, maybe. Maybe not assists, but he's coming up.
Been held for decades now. Kareem, Abdul-Jabbar.
Yeah, he's got it,
So, the man is littered with records. It'll be very interesting to see how well his sons perform. And, at the base of it, I'd just like to see the family dynamic playing. I mean, lots of sports, you get a lot of backing and joy seeing brothers or sisters play on the same team. So to see the father-son dynamic would be really cool to see.
Yeah, no, and I think, season starting soon. That's a really, really cool place. We wish LeBron James all the best. We know he doesn't listen. I know I've thrown names of big guys that listen. LeBron doesn't listen. Not yet, anyway, to the big one. But we wish him all the best, and I hope he has a successful season as a LeBron fan. And I think that's a really, really nice place to wrap up on section 2, the sports section over there. But yeah, NBA season coming up. I'll keep you posted. I'll be watching it. So stay tuned. I might hop in every now and again on an episode and give my very limited scope on the NBA. But yeah, I guess that's that for me.
Yeah, I'd love to do that. Yeah, the recap of the games, what went well, what you thought was a surprise. I think maybe we could see a few upsets in these opening fixtures. So we'll be keeping an eye on that. We'll report back.
Yep, gotcha. I gotcha.
But remember, like, subscribe, comment, share, engage with us. Who do you think is going to take it, the NBA this year? Who do you think is going to be the MVP? Give us your predictions. We want to know. It's the beginning of the season, and then we'll touch base as the season goes on to see who was closest, who was right, and kind of the upsets as well from the season.
Yep, sounds good.
That moves us into our final section of our show, which we've somewhat combined, called Matters of the Heart.
Yep.
Matters of the Heart. So we have combined Matters of the Heart and What's Good in Your Hood.
Yes, sir.
Together, because it's really merged together here. We've taken some time today to think about what the answers could be to the age-old question about settling and feeling settled in. So as people that have migrated from home, we've immigrated, we are now in foreign lands, and it takes some time to feel settled. It takes some time to feel integrated, to feel like you belong where you've moved to. And these are the considerations that both Tyler and I have had to ponder on for our respective timelines that we've been in our countries. I think I'd kick off by thinking about a few questions that have popped up in my mind. So, number one, culture and just the general social environment of my new home. Let's call it home for now. It's been a big change. 100% not what I thought it was going to be. We are led down a particular route when we look at movies, films, after movies, of events. There's a lot of content out there that can give an indication of what a place is supposed to look like.
Yes.
And once you're actually in it, it doesn't always live up to the billing.
Yeah.
So for me, the cultural differences has been quite an adjustment. I mentioned previously in other episodes the dynamic of having been majority to now being a minority in terms of demographics. That has been quite a challenge, because you'd want someone that you can relate to. You want someone that you can kind of find shared experiences through, and through that you could potentially form a bond, make a friend, and have that be the start of your growing of the social hub. So that's something that I'm still working with. It has been really hard to integrate, really hard to understand people that aren't always willing to let you into the social circuit. So how do I understand you if you don't give room for an opportunity? That was the first consideration. That also leads to integration. Another obvious example was the weather and the climate. So massively different to what it's like in South Africa. The African sun.
Have you found that very difficult?
I have found
the weather
a bit of a challenge.
Okay.
So far, we're in autumn now, and autumn back home is a light jacket. It's something like that.
Yeah.
Whereas here, autumn would probably mean breaking out the K-ways, putting on a beanie. It's real. Get the gumboots ready because it's not only cold, but it's rainy and very windy.
Okay.
So if this is a precursor to winter, I'm scared to think what winter is
apparently
be like.
Winter rains like a lot, isn't it? As
and
well?
Daylight, the amount of daylight you get in a day. Apparently, sun would start setting at around 3 o'clock
Yeah.
in the UK. So
Jeez, that's
it's a
early.
very shortened day.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a big adjustment. Waking up, darkness. You leave, you go
Yeah.
to work, it's dark. You work, by the time you finish work, it's dark again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm curious to see how my body adjusts to something
Yeah.
like that. That's
Yeah.
another big consideration. And then I'd also say, yeah, from my point of view, I suffer a lot with sinuses. So the change in season has been quite a difficult thing to overcome. Thankfully, there are medications, there are remedies that one can
Yeah.
try to get through. So that's another important consideration. And yeah, familiarity. I think that's been the biggest lesson learned for me.
Okay. Okay.
I had this, like I said, I've had this idea of what the UK would look like from
Yeah.
the accounts that people have told me. But I guess I hadn't taken into consideration living versus holidaying in a place are completely two different things.
Yeah.
So someone's experience on holiday in England, and notably everyone goes into London, obviously,
Yes.
when they come to the UK. Oh, it's great. There's nightlife. There's a lot to do. There's people always around. You can socialize. You can do A, B, and C, which isn't always the case when you move outside of London. So once you've moved out of the tourist hubs of the country, what does that
Yeah.
mean? What does that translate to? And yeah, that's been something I've constantly had to remind myself that, yes, you can go into London, you can have a great time, you can go enjoy, watch the football, have quite a diverse range of foods, meet people, whilst you're doing social activities. But once you're in your actual community, how do you integrate? How do you feel settled? We're so used to, so Africans by nature are very helpful people. We believe in the ethos of Ubuntu.
Yeah.
I help you, you help the next person. We're all benefiting through the shared help, the shared experience here. And
Yes.
it's been quite a battle to try and want that from local people when it's not
Yeah.
ingrained in them. I find that through my brief interaction with some of the local people, it's like pulling water through rock.
Yeah.
You're really trying to get them to be something that they might not ordinarily be. In
Yeah.
being helpful, jumping at people's aids, giving, just good acts of
Yeah. Acts of kindness or whatever.
kindness. Yeah,
I mean, I will say though, like, I think one of the biggest things that we have to remember when you move anywhere, it can be within your country, it can be overseas. I think you also have to, and it's a hard lesson to learn, but you have to change your expectations a little bit.
true.
There's so many factors that have led to South Africans adopting the sense of Ubuntu, which is, it's not even like a nationwide given wherever you go. We are used to it. It's definitely a very frequent thing. But you also have to understand, like, there's a whole different bunch of factors that come together and culminate into creating something. And I think, we as people, we find comfort in familiarity, right? We find that we need that kind of familiarity, and as soon as it starts to change, it starts to become very difficult for us, and it's kind of like, I'm struggling because people aren't doing X, Y, and Z, and it's kind of like, yeah, but they don't. There's X amount of million people that live there, and that's not part of their culture, and I think it's difficult, though. It is difficult to kind of go through that, like for me, or for us, I found one of the biggest challenges naturally was language. It's a completely different language. So, yeah. And, it's in the same token of how I can't turn around and expect people to just speak English. I don't know if we can turn around and expect people to have a certain nature either, if you know what I'm saying. Like, and I think that's also just something to bear in mind. It's kind of like living in the present and understanding that, this is the way it is. And I know it sucks. Of course it sucks a lot. But, that's kind of like just what I've had to learn here. It's like, it is what it is, man. Like, there's push and pull factors. There's things that are, difficult. There's things that are easy. You talk about climate, the challenges that you're going through. In Thailand, the seasons are hot, very hot, and raining. Those are the three seasons that you get, right? And obviously that took time to adjust. I've never felt so comfortable with sweat, man. Like, honestly, never. Like, it's serious. It's really crazy. And when I was back home, I felt very uncomfortable when I used to sweat, right? So it's like, there's like this, I don't like it. Whereas, it's like, you're going to waste your time if you're going to feel uncomfortable sweating, because that's just the reality. That's where you live.
Yeah.
And I think for me, once I started accepting and understanding that this is just the way things go, sometimes, like, there's a lot of things that people can complain about being here. There's a lot of things to love about being here. You got to take everything with a little kind of pinch of salt. And I think the big question that we're kind of dealing with here is like, when do you start to feel at home, right? Or when do you start to feel comfortable within that space? And it's such a tough question to answer, because I just think there's so many things about it there's so many angles that it will come at. Arguably, there's times when you live at home when you don't feel at home, right? There's times when scenarios change for you at home and you feel very uncomfortable, right? And it's the same thing when you move abroad, except you don't have that fallback. You don't have that family that you can go see. You don't have that kind of support system. And that's kind of where it starts getting a little bit challenging. For me, I'll say, I'm not so sure when it happened that I felt at home here, but there's also a thing here. I'm not sure what it's going to be like in the UK. There's a sense that you are always somewhat of a foreigner, here, to an extent. You look completely different to the locals, like completely different. You stand out. And B, like, getting visas and etc. is quite challenging, and it's something that we talk about quite often, is like how the challenges that come associated with that. But then on the other hand, there's times that I felt here more comfortable than I ever have. And now, do you attribute that to yourself as an individual? Like, I'm comfortable with who I am at this time, and therefore my space feels more homely. That's also maybe a little bit philosophical and deep to think about, but that, I think, all of these things kind of play a part. And my caution would be to people is like, it's easier said than done, but try not to have an expectation based on your experiences in a country that is thousands of kilometers away, with a completely different history, with a completely different climate, with a completely different, I would warn people, like, I didn't know. Like, people said when you move, it's going to be a culture shock. I'm like, no, how? Why? Like, I was like, big deal. I was like, why would it be a culture shock? I'm a man of the world. I'm diverse. I understand things. And I got you, and it was a culture shock. Legit. But I guess, like, that's kind of what I would say about it. It's just, you got to take it for what it is. You got to be where you are. You got to forge. You got to make those efforts. I've said to you before, like, you say you struggle a little bit socially in terms of getting into the social groups. I believe things like Meetup, I told you about that website where you find like-minded people. I've learned that you really have to make an effort if you want things to change. I play touch rugby. That's like my thing here. I've made a lot of friends doing that. And that's because of the effort that I've made. And that's kind of like what has helped me feel at home, is putting in that effort, going that extra mile to meet like-minded people.
Yeah, no, very true. Perspective is a wonderful thing. So like you said, open yourself up to realizing that there's so much beyond your lived experience. There is a whole new world, literally, that you haven't seen for your entire life, that you're now being privy to. And it's, something that like you said, takes work, it takes effort. You have to put yourself in these positions, put yourself in these places, evaluate, say, look, as uncomfortable as it is, I want a change. If I'm not happy with the way the things are currently, the current state of things, then I need to be the one that actions the change.
Because I can guarantee you're not the only person who feels this way. You're not the 100%. Only person who feels isolated and alone, and that people around you are unfriendly. So your job or your mission would be to find the people that have that same feeling, and you get together.
100%, 100%. And in that, sense of familiarity or that shared experience, then so much that can bloom from that. So great advice there on what makes it feel like home. So guys, sometimes you get a free therapy session here as well.
Sometimes you do. I the big vibes over here. Yeah. No, I think that's a nice kind of little piece of advice or whatever to give to people. You have to learn to be okay being uncomfortable. Be okay to sweat. That's what I learned here. You got to be okay to sweat. Emotionally, physically, you just got to be okay to be a little bit uncomfortable. And as soon as you can accept that little bit of uncomfortableness, you're able to breathe. So, thanks everyone. I guess, thanks. It was a fun episode. I enjoyed recording that one.
I was going to say thanks again for giving us your ears, giving us your eyes,
your time
with us, your time. Oh man, it's the one thing that is the precious commodity of this world. So we thank you for sharing it with us. Thank you for all the interactions, the messages, the comments. We appreciate you guys engaging and just telling us what you think. Telling us what you think about our podcast, telling us some of the stories we've covered,
suggestions,
everything, suggestions. It means a lot. And thank you for allowing us to share parts of ourselves with you. We really enjoyed last week's episode with our wives, and like Tyler said, we have a lot of special guests that we're going to be including in our podcasts going forward. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be really fun, really exciting. You're going to get so much insight into these respective areas that you might not have known too much about. So stay tuned, man. And again, thanks so much for joining us. We really love this one. We will certainly catch you at the next one. Again, reminder, like, subscribe, comment, engage. Rate,
all our social the nice
networks.
Things.
We're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and our website. So all our links are available there. We will see you guys at the next one. Thank you so much for joining us.
Catch you later.
Cheerio.
Bye-bye.